A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. After 3 days, Joseph and Mary found Jesus in the temple, sitting in the midst of the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were astounded at his understanding and his answers. When Jesus' parents saw him, they were astonished. And his mother said to him, "Son, why have you done this to us? Your father and I have been looking for you with great anxiety." And Jesus said to them, "Why were you looking for me? Did you not know that I must be in my Father's house?" But his parents did not understand what he said to them. Jesus went down with them and came to Nazareth and was obedient to them. And his mother kept all these things in her heart. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. We've all done stupid things, haven't we? A few of us may be thinking, well, not me. Seriously, haven't we done some pretty stupid things? I know I have. Lots and lots and lots of times. And not just when I was a child, but it happens as an adult too. And you know, they usually seem like good things to do at the time. Stupid things usually do. And someone would invariably come up to me and ask why I didn't do X, Y, or Z, all being better choices than the one I made. And almost always my answer would be the same. I never thought about it. Sometimes we just don't take the time necessary to think things through. I love this line in Luke's Gospel, which he uses several times throughout the infancy narratives. And Mary kept all these things, reflecting on them in her heart. One could argue that in general, we are much less self-reflective than we used to be, at least in the best sense of that word, reflective. Self-absorbed maybe, self-reflective, not so much. And I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe it's our hectic lives. Maybe it's the amount of energy we spend trying to entertain ourselves or distract ourselves from our problems. Whatever the cause is, it's not clear. How many of you ponder life's biggest questions and your relation to them? How many of you truly wrestle with moral issues, trying to be the very best we can be? How many of you seriously contemplate what it all means? I think many of us put our lives on autopilot without giving anything a second thought. And that's a shame. For the spiritual life is about reflection. Our relationship with God requires active dialogue. Our relationship to God's creation, the world, demands that we wrestle with and struggle with to discern what God's will is for each one of us, in our time and place in history, in our individual circumstances. You know, our spiritual lives are not of the cookie cutter variety. One size does not fit all. And Mary knew that about herself. Since the first time the angel came to her, Mary realized that her place in the world was unique, that her life would be forever unlike those of others. and that God had a special plan for her. And so Luke makes a special point of reminding us, especially in the infancy years of Jesus, that Mary took time to reflect on all those things that were happening to her son in her heart. Now, just think about this for a moment. Mary's just given birth under the most difficult and incredible circumstances. And what does she do? St. Luke tells us she reflected on these moments in her heart. She contemplates what all this means. And probably not just regarding herself, but what will this mean, or what does this mean for Joseph and their future life together? And what does it mean for the Israelite people as a whole? Mary was not just a passive person in God's saving works. She was actually actively engaged in it and participated in it and cooperated with it. And so it can be for us too. Oh, make no mistake about it. Our place in God's saving plan will never equal that of Mary. Her unique and preeminent role is the saving work of God, and it's unparalleled by any other disciple. And for her witness and prayers, we need to be eternally grateful. But the most important thing that I want to emphasize is that God has something especially planned for each of us. And no two of our lives will be or should be the same. Each one of us is unique. And that means that our place in God's saving work is unique, no matter how large or how small. And no one can play that part other than you and you and you. And it won't happen by accident. It didn't happen that way for Mary, and it won't happen that way for us. And it certainly won't happen if we presume that our lives need to look like everyone else's. But it can happen if we make sure to take the time to truly reflect on what God has planned for us in our lives. To ask ourselves those important questions. Who is God for me today? Who is Jesus? What does Jesus' dying mean to me? What's the point of life? What's a good life look like? What's my place in this world, in my community, in my family? What am I willing to do for this God that I cannot see? These are just a few of the big questions to contemplate, and no, not solve, just contemplate. My dear friends, one of the most ancient titles that the Greek fathers gave to Mary was Theotokos. And in Greek, that title means God-bearer. And the reality is that each of us, in our own way, is asked to be God-bearers in this world. In other words, to bring Jesus to every place in which we find ourselves and to every person. And I know that sounds incredible, impossible really, but it's not. It's our calling and it's our destiny by our baptism. And what difference does it make? What difference could I possibly make in this world? What will be my part to play? I have only one suggestion that I'd like to offer to you today. Ponder it. Think about it. Reflect on it. And most importantly, listen.